1,121 miles. That is the distance from Miami to Dallas, Texas. We are back here, vlog number 21 at Texas Card House. I really enjoy playing at this room. It's basically brand new. The action is great. The dealers and staff are super well trained and professional, and the stacks are deep. We buy in for $1,000, but very shortly a couple players win some big pots, so we are allowed to buy in for $2,500 to match a stack. We fold for a couple hands and then pick up our first playable hand here. Cutoff opens it up to $15, small blind, flats 15. We wake up with pocket jimmies here in the big blind, 3-bet it up to $75. We want to go big here, out of position 5x. I think I could go actually a little bit bigger considering how deep we are with both these opponents. Cutoff makes the call and the small blind folds. We are heads up here, first pot in Texas. Flop comes out, king 6 deuce rainbow. Not the best board for us, but it's pretty dry. We're going to bet $50 into 165, about 1/3 pot. He snap calls our bet, so we're going to the turn. With $265 in the middle, the turn card is the 10 of hearts. Doesn't improve our hand, but shouldn't improve his much either. We decide to check, put in some pot control here, and also let this guy bluff. From what I've seen from this guy in the short period of time I played with him is he likes to play a lot of hands and he likes to bet a lot. So we put in the check here, looking to probably check call on the turn and possibly check call on the river, depending on the bet size. On the turn, he decides to bet $175. This is a pretty big bet size from him. I don't think he would bet this big with a hand like king queen or king jack, so he's repping 2 pair or a set, and given the fact that it's pretty hard for him to have pocket kings or even pocket tens, we make the call going here to the river, which is the 4 of hearts, brings in the backdoor flush draw. We check it over to him, and now he goes into the tank. This is not the best river card for us. He could be floating us on the flop with a backdoor heart draw, and then he turns that draw. When we check it to him on the turn, he could be betting there, and then now he could hit it with a hand like 5-6 of hearts, 8-7 of hearts, 7-9 of hearts, ace-5 of hearts, ace-queen of hearts. Any of those combos are potential hands he could have. He thinks for a while and puts in a bet of $425. So very large bet here compared to the pot. Pretty polarized bet sizing here. I don't think he'd be betting this big with just 1 pair. So we are losing to all those backdoor flush draws that ended up getting there. We're losing to any king and even a hand like pocket tens or pocket sixes, pocket deuces. So we give it some thought, probably tanking for about a minute here. We decide to let this one go. Not going to pay off this big bet here and move on to the next hand. We end up playing a lot of hands with this guy. He's pretty wild. We're going to nickname him Action Jackson, AJ for short. He is in there in a lot of pots, playing a lot of hands. In this hand, under the gun limps, Action Jackson in the cutoff makes it $20. Small blind calls 20. We're in the big blind with pocket eights. We make the call and the limper calls. Flop comes down 9-9-4, 2 hearts. We check it over to AJ, who puts in a $25 bet. Small blind folds. And given our hand on this board, we make the call. Can't be folding just yet to 1 bet from AJ. Turn card is a 4, double pairs the board. We check it over to AJ, who puts out a bet of $125. So this is kind of a weird spot. Now he's basically saying he only has a 9. We should have more 9s and 4s in our range, given the fact that we called from the big blind and he opened it up in the cutoff. So we think for a little bit of time, we can't be folding a pair to this player just yet. We're going to call 125 and evaluate here on the river. Last card here is the 7 of hearts. Not the best card because I think he possibly could have been barreling the turn with a flush draw, and now he probably won't bet that for value, but he might check it back and win. So we check it over to him. He thinks for about 5 or 10 seconds and checks back. AJ shows pocket deuces for a counterfeit pair for deuce high. We can beat that. We show our pocket eights and end up scooping this pot. Now we are 1v1 against this opponent with a lot more hands to come. With our third pocket pair of the night, we look down at pocket kiggities, king Kong, pocket kings under the gun, make it $25. Button calls before the small blind squeezes it to $125. In theory, the small blind should be super strong here. We opened under the gun to 25, and now he's squeezing from the big blind where he could just call. So he should have a hand like jacks, queens, ace, king, kings, and aces. And given the fact that we're beating basically all those hands, we put in a 4-bet. 4-bet it to $475. My opponent doesn't think for too long before folding, so take down a small pot here with pocket kings. We are picking up a lot of premiums here. Next hand here, we have pocket queens under the gun, raise it up to $25. We get 4 callers, so going 5 ways to the flop. The board comes out 10-8 for 2 diamonds. Big blind checks to us, and we decide to check on this board, balancing out our checking range and also pot controlling. We're 5 ways with a 1-pair hand, super deep with our opponents. I want to see what they do before I start piling in a bunch of money. This board's going to hit their calling ranges a lot more than it's going to hit my raising range under the gun. They're going to have a lot of 2 pairs, sets, big straight draw, combo draws, and flush draws. So next act player bets $45. Now AJ thinks for a little bit of time and calls $45. Now we have to decide, should we raise or just call? The opponent bet $45 into 125, kind of a weak sizing here. We could raise, but we are out of position against two sticky players super deep, so I don't want to get this pot out of control here. I decide to check call $45 and evaluate on the turn. With the check call strategy on the flop, and given the fact that they bet 45 and only called, I put my opponent's ranges on one pair hands and straight draws and flush draws. So when the turn card pairs to forward, this is a good card for me. It's less likely they have a set of fours. It also counterfeits a hand like 10-8 and a hand like 9-10 or Jack-10 that could hit two pair on the river. So we decide to lead out for value here, trying to not let this turn card get checked through, get value from a 10, an 8, straight draws, and flush draws. One thing I really like about playing poker is that it's super creative. You basically come up with what line you want to take, and I want my lines to be different than anybody else. I want to play unorthodox. I want to keep my opponents guessing. I want them to level themselves, possibly paying me off light or doing things they don't normally do. So leading on the turn here is kind of an unorthodox play, but we end up getting two folds, so we end up taking this pot down with pocket queens. The action is heating up and the chips are flying, which means stacks are getting big. We add on for another $1,500. Now we have a stack of about 3.7K, matching the biggest stack at the table, ready for the next hand. Under the gun straddle to 10, action Jackson makes it $35 from under the gun plus 2. We have 10-8 of diamonds. We should be 3-betting or folding this hand from early to late position. We decide to 3-bet this time, make it 125, trying to go heads up here in position against AJ. Flop comes down 8-9-4. We flop middle pair. He checks it over to us. Given the fact that we have middle pair and showdown value, we decide to check this one back. We see a 9 of clubs on the turn, which pairs the board, and now AJ goes into the tank. He decides to lead. He makes it 125, betting about half pot here, and given the fact that we check back the flop, he could put us on a lot of overcards like king, queen, king, jack, ace, queen, ace, king, so he could be stabbing here with a ton of hands. We have a pair. We're not going anywhere just yet. We make the call. The river is the 5 of hearts, doesn't change anything except for 6-7 gets there, which was open-ended on the turn. I'm basically going to call any bet here. I decided to check back the flop, under-repping my hand, hoping that AJ would blast off, and if he bets anything under $500, I'm basically going to snap call. Action Jackson settles on a bet of 275. We're going to stick with our plan, not going to fold a pair to this guy. We put in the one chip call. He shows us pocket jacks. That's going to beat our 8 on this board. We muck. He ends up beating us here. The score is now 2-1. All right, guys, fasten your seatbelts for this one because it's going to get big. We have ace king. There's an undergun straddle to 10, 2 limpers for 10. We make it 60 in the cutoff. The straddler calls and the first limper calls. I have a love-hate relationship with ace-king, but it's pretty hard not to love a flop of queen, jack, 10. We flop the nuts straight, the best hand possible, and it gets better. The straddler leads out for $80. Now the first limper goes into the tank. We look back at our suits to see which one we have. We do have the ace of diamonds, which is good for us, meaning that if a diamond hits on the turn, we'll still have the nut flush draw. The limper now calls $80. Now we have to decide, should we just call, try to put in the trap, or should we raise it up here on this board with a nut straight? Raising it up here sounds like the best play. We make it 275. We unblock all the value hands our opponents can have. They can have 2 pair, queen jack, queen 10, pocket jacks, pocket 10s, pocket queens, king 9, 8-9, all these hands that we can get value from. And given the fact that the straddler was playing pretty tight and we're super deep, I'm going to try to raise this one up, build a big pot here. Straddler thinks for about 20 seconds, makes the call, and the limper folds. So going heads up here to the turn. Pretty interesting line here by the straddler, leading out for 80, then calling our 275 raise. I put him on a super strong hand. I don't think he has pocket queens. I think he would 3-bet that pre-flop. I also don't think he has ace king. He would 3-bet that as well, so I don't think we're chopping. But given his line, I think he has a really strong hand like pocket jacks, pocket 10s, or king 9 suited for a worse straight. So whenever he checks it over to us and when we see these 7 of spades on the turn, we're going to bet, and we're going to bet big. We settle on $500, about 60% pot here. Our opponent thinks, looks at our stack, looks back at his stack, slides in a stack of greens here to call, so things are looking great for us. I'm putting him on a very strong hand like I said before, so we're looking for a brick river so we can pile in even more money. The dealer collects the bets and puts out the river, 6 of spades. We still have the best hand possible. What a beautiful run out for us. The straddler checks it over to me, and I do something I don't normally do. I start to Hollywood. I put on a little act here. I kind of act like, should I bet? Should I check back? I want him to think I'm contemplating maybe bluffing big on the river. I go into the tank, put on my best acting skills for about a minute, and settle on a bet of $1,250, trying to cooler this guy to the max if he has a straight or a set. I said this before and I'll say it again. The best feeling in poker is when you have the nuts, the best hand possible, and you can put in a big bet, putting your opponent to the test, knowing that you're going to get all those chips back, the ones in the middle, and hopefully more from a stack. After 30 seconds, he puts in the call. We show ace king to scoop almost a $4,200 pot here. Biggest pot we've won all month, and definitely the biggest pot we've won here in Texas. Flopping the nuts and getting 3 streets of value. Running good here in Dallas so far. All right, back to the action here. AJ opens up to $15. The button 3 bets to 50. We have pocket kings in the big blind, and we decide to flat call 50. We don't want a cold 4-bet here and have both of our opponents fold. Given that it's cutoff versus button, their ranges could be super wide. I think if I flat call, there's a chance that AJ might put in a 4-bet. Then we could just try to get it all in pre-flop with him. Unfortunately, he just makes the call, so we're going 3 ways here with pocket kings. Like I said earlier, I like to play different, a little unorthodox. I know this is almost always a 4-bet, given the fact that it's a cutoff and button raise, but I want to trap sometimes. I'm a super aggressive player, so sometimes I have to trap with hands like pocket kings. The flop comes out Jack 5-3 rainbow. Pretty good board for us. Checks to the button, who puts in a bet of $50. So we trap pre-flop, and we just called here with pocket kings. We got a great board, jack high board. I think I should always be putting in a raise here, probably to 175 or 200, trying to get it all in here with the button. But I decided to call, trying to keep AJ in there. Maybe he'll do something crazy, and I can back raise all in as well. I call 50, and AJ calls 50. So going 3 ways here to the turn. We see a turn of 9 of diamonds. We check it over to AJ, who checks it to the button, and the button, unfortunately, checks it back, so it doesn't look like he has much here. Probably has a hand like ace queen, ace king, or pocket tens. River card, 4 of clubs. Now we're going to lead out for a value. We have to decide what bet sizing we want to use. The button checked back, so it looks like he most likely has a smaller pair to the board or ace high, so we want to bet a sizing that he can call with, like pocket tens or pocket nines. I also want to bet a size that potentially could induce AJ to bluff. I settle on a bet of $115, just about 1/3 pot, to make it look like I have a weaker jack, like queen jack or jack 10, or even trying to get value with a hand like pocket tens myself, and this could potentially induce AJ to put in a big raise trying to get me off one pair. He had been caught bluffing before, and he just won a couple pots, so he is stacking up now. He thinks for a while. If he folds, hopefully the button will hero call us with a weaker pair, but it ends up not coming to that. AJ decides to raise. He raises it up to $600. The button ends up tanking here for about 30 seconds, which I find is kind of weird given the fact that he checked back on the turn, but he ends up folding. Now the action's back on us, and we pretty much snap call $600. AJ shows 6-7 offsuit for a rivered straight. He's going to beat our pocket kings here. I guess that's what we get for not 4-betting pre-flop or raising the flop. Oh well. AJ got us good this time. Now the score is 3-1. Last hand of the night here, we have queen 10 offsuit on the button. Under the gun raises to $25. Action Jackson calls, and if he's in the pot, we're definitely in the pot. We make the call, and the small blind makes the call, so going 4 ways to the flop. We flop top pair on queen 6-3, 2 clubs. Initial raiser checks. AJ now thinks for a little bit of time and puts in a bet of $50. With our top pair 10 kicker, we can't raise, we can't fold, so we're going to call, and the rest of the players end up folding. Turn card pairs a 6 and AJ checks to us. Not looking to get check raised on this board with our queen with a 10 kicker. We end up checking this one back, going to the river, which is the 9 of diamonds. So flush draw misses. Now Action Jackson thinks and decides to bet 3 green chips, $75. Can't fold here, so we make the call. He ends up showing queen 4 of clubs for top pair 4 kicker. We show queen 10 with a better kicker and scoop this last pot. What a day it has been, guys. We left this morning in Miami around 7 a.m. and now it's 3:20 in the morning. So super tired, long day, but Texas poker did not disappoint again. I love it here in Texas. The games are awesome. Match the stack. no rake off the table, 9-handed, crazy action. It's just, you can't really get anything like this right now in 2021. Texas Poker is definitely where it's at. So, didn't run the best today, honestly. Lost with some big pocket pairs, pocket jacks, pocket kings we lost to. Made a pretty big call there on the river for $600 and was wrong. But we won some small pots and then won that massive pot there with ace king, flopping a straight, getting our opponent to call down on the flop, turn, and then a massive bet on the river. So I'm sure I coolered him, but that was a much needed pot. Played a little bit of 5-10, wasn't much action there. Ended up calling it after about 6.5 hours. As you guys saw in the game for $5,000, cashing out for $6,200. We're going to get some sleep, get ready for day 2, edit this vlog, and get that out to you guys. If you guys like this, make sure to like and subscribe. New videos like this coming out every single week. All right, that is it for this one, guys. Until next time, I'll see you.